How many opportunities have been lost because the right words were never spoken? Think about that. A friendship, a business deal, a promotion, a dream. Not because the person lacked talent, not because they lacked intelligence, but because they could not communicate what was in their heart and mind. You see, my friend, communication is not just talking. Talking is easy. Communication is understanding. Communication is connection. Communication is influence. And influence is one of the greatest assets you can ever develop. The challenge is not to become successful. The challenge is to become valuable. And one of the ways you become valuable is by learning how to communicate. Because your words matter. A careless word can destroy trust. A thoughtful word can build a future. A harsh sentence can close a door. A kind sentence can open 100. Most people spend years learning how to make a living. Very few spend time learning how to speak, how to listen, how to connect, and how to inspire. Yet, the people who rise in life, the people who lead, the people who create opportunities usually have one skill in common. They know how to communicate. Communication can turn an idea into a movement. It can turn a stranger into a friend, a customer into a loyal supporter, a dream into a shared vision. And let me tell you something important. Effective communication is 20% what you know and 80% how you feel about what you know. People may forget your words, but they rarely forget how you made them feel. That's why the art of communication is really the art of people. It's learning to listen before speaking, to understand before judging, to encourage instead of criticize, because words are seeds. Plant criticism and you harvest distance. Plant encouragement and you harvest trust. So today, I want to take you on a journey into one of the most powerful skills you can develop. Not public speaking alone, not persuasion alone, but the deeper art of communication, the art of connecting with another human being. Because when you learn to communicate well, you don't just change conversations. You change relationships, you change opportunities, and ultimately you change your life. So lean in, listen carefully, because the words you choose tomorrow may determine the future you live next year. Let me ask you a simple question. When was the last time you truly listened to someone? Not just heard their words, not just waited for your turn to speak, but really listened? You see, my friend, communication doesn't begin with talking. It begins with listening. That's where every meaningful relationship starts. And that's where influence begins. Most people believe that great communicators are great speakers. I don't. I believe great communicators are first great listeners, because before you can move someone's mind, you must first understand their heart. One of the greatest values you can bring to the marketplace is your ability to understand people. And understanding begins with listening, not interrupting, not assuming, not preparing your next answer while the other person is still talking. Just listening. Listening with patience. Listening with respect. Listening with genuine curiosity. That kind of listening is becoming rare. We live in a world full of noise. Everyone wants to be heard. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone wants the microphone. But very few people are willing to be quiet long enough to learn something. And here's an interesting thought. Every person you meet knows something you don't know. Every conversation has the potential to teach you something, but only if you're willing to listen. One of the greatest mistakes we make is believing we already know enough. The moment you stop listening, you stop growing. Growth requires humility. Humility says, maybe this person has something valuable to teach me. Whether they're older or younger, whether they're wealthy or struggling, whether they agree with you or disagree. Every conversation is an opportunity. Don't waste it. You know, successful people ask good questions, then they listen carefully. Average people ask questions only so they can talk more. There's a difference. A wise person listens to understand. An unwise person listens only to respond. And those two habits lead to two completely different lives. Let me tell you something I've learned over the years. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And one of the simplest ways to show someone you care is to listen. When you give someone your full attention, you're giving them one of the greatest gifts possible. Your time, your presence, your respect. In today's busy world, that gift has become incredibly valuable. Think about the people you admire, the mentors, the leaders, the friends you trust most. Chances are they made you feel heard, not judged, not ignored. Heard. That's why people naturally trust them. Trust isn't built through impressive speeches. It's built through sincere attention. Communication is not about proving you're right. It's about creating understanding. Sometimes the greatest thing you can say is nothing at all. Just listen. Allow someone to finish their thought. Don't rush to solve every problem. Sometimes people don't need advice. Sometimes they simply need someone who will listen without interruption. That takes discipline because the ego always wants to speak. The ego wants recognition. The ego wants to be right. But wisdom knows when silence is more powerful than words. Here's a principle worth remembering. The better you listen, the better you learn. The better you learn, the better you grow. And the better you grow, the more valuable you become. Communication isn't a competition. It's a connection. It's about building bridges instead of walls, understanding instead of arguing, learning instead of assuming. So here's my challenge for you. Today, listen more than you speak. Ask one more question. Interrupt one less time. Give someone your complete attention. You may be surprised by what you discover, not only about them, but about yourself. Because great communication has never been about saying the perfect words. It has always been about having the right heart, a heart willing to listen, a mind willing to learn, and a spirit willing to understand. Remember this, my friend. The strongest voice in the room is not always the loudest. Very often it's the one that knows when to be quiet, because great communication always begins with great listening. Let me ask you a question. What if one conversation could change your life? Think about it. One conversation could lead to a new opportunity. One conversation could save a relationship. One conversation could open the door to a new career. One conversation could inspire someone to believe in themselves again. That's the power of communication. Most people underestimate it. They believe success comes only from talent or education or experience. Those things matter. But here's what I've learned. If you can't communicate your ideas, the world may never discover your value. I've often said success is something you attract by the person you become. Well, one of the qualities of a valuable person is the ability to communicate with clarity, confidence, and sincerity. Communication is much more than speaking. It's influence, it's leadership, it's connection. Every successful leader understands one simple truth. People follow people they understand, not people who confuse them, not people who impress them with big words. People respond to clarity. Simple words, honest words, meaningful words. That's why communication is so powerful. It turns ideas into action, dreams into reality, strangers into friends, and followers into leaders. Think about your own life. How many opportunities have you gained because of one good conversation? How many opportunities have you lost because you didn't know what to say? Words have consequences. Sometimes we spend years building trust, and one careless sentence destroys it. On the other hand, one encouraging sentence can give someone hope they carry for the rest of their life. Never underestimate the power of your words. Every day you're planting seeds. Some seeds grow confidence. Others grow doubt. Some build relationships. Others destroy them. The choice is yours. I learned a long time ago that communication is not about trying to sound important. It's about making other people feel important. People don't remember every word you say. They remember how you made them feel. Did you encourage them? Did you inspire them? Did you respect them? Did you make them believe they mattered? Those are the conversations people never forget. Here's another lesson. Great communicators don't try to win every argument. They try to build every relationship. There's a difference. Winning an argument may satisfy your ego. Building a relationship can change your life. Sometimes it's better to protect the relationship than protect your pride. That takes maturity. It takes wisdom. And wisdom is always more valuable than being right. Remember this, your tone speaks before your words do. You can say the right sentence in the wrong tone and completely lose the message. Speak with kindness, speak with confidence, speak with respect, not because everyone deserves it, but because your character deserves it. Here's something worth thinking about. Every successful business is built on communication. Every successful marriage is built on communication. Every successful friendship is built on communication. Every successful team is built on communication. Remove communication and everything begins to fall apart. That's why this skill is so valuable. You can improve your income, improve your leadership, improve your relationship simply by improving the way you communicate. And here's the good news. Communication is a skill, not a gift. Skills can be learned. Skills can be practiced. Skills can be improved. Every conversation becomes an opportunity to grow. Don't be afraid to speak. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Every great communicator was once an uncertain beginner. Confidence doesn't come before action. Confidence comes because of action. Every time you speak, you improve. Every time you listen, you grow. Every time you encourage someone, you become more valuable. So here's my challenge for you today. Use your words wisely. Speak hope instead of fear. Speak gratitude instead of complaint. Speak possibilities instead of limitations. Become the person whose words leave people stronger than they were before they met you. Because communication is not just about exchanging information. It is about changing lives. And perhaps the first life your words will change is your own. Let me ask you a question. When was the last time a single question changed your life? Think about it. Sometimes one question is more powerful than 100 answers. That's because questions make people think. Questions open doors. Questions reveal possibilities that advice alone cannot. I've learned something over the years. The most successful people are not always the ones with the most answers. Very often, they are the ones asking the best questions, because questions are the beginning of wisdom. Before you can solve a problem, you must understand it. Before you can help someone, you must know what they need. And before you can grow, you must be willing to ask yourself some honest questions. Questions like, what do I really want? What habits are holding me back? What can I improve today? Those questions can change the direction of your life. You see, communication isn't about proving how much you know. It's about discovering what you don't know. That's why curiosity is such a valuable quality. Curious people keep learning. Curious people keep growing. Curious people keep improving. The moment you stop asking questions, you stop discovering new opportunities. Here's another lesson. Great leaders ask questions before giving instructions. Why? Because people want to be understood, not managed, not judged. Understood. When you ask someone, how are you doing? And then truly listen, you're building trust. When you ask, what do you think? You're showing respect. When you ask, how can I help? You're building relationships, simple questions, powerful results. I've often said, formal education will make you a living. Self-education will make you a fortune. And self-education begins with asking questions. Ask questions when you read. Ask questions when you listen. Ask questions when you fail. Every experience has a lesson hidden inside it. The question is, are you looking for it? Here's something else worth remembering. Never be afraid to ask for advice. Some people let pride stand in the way of learning. They think asking questions makes them look weak. The opposite is true. Asking thoughtful questions is a sign of strength. It tells people you're willing to learn, you're willing to improve, you're willing to grow. And growth is impossible without humility. The greatest mentors I've known all had one thing in common. They never stopped learning. No matter how successful they became, they remained students of life. They kept asking. They kept listening. They kept growing. That is why they stayed valuable. So let me challenge you. The next time you're in a conversation, don't focus on saying something impressive. Focus on asking something meaningful. Ask questions that encourage people to think. Ask questions that help people discover their own answers. Ask questions that build understanding instead of creating arguments. Because sometimes the right question is more valuable than the perfect speech. Remember this, your future is often hidden behind the questions you're willing to ask. So stay curious, stay humble, never stop learning, and never underestimate the power of a thoughtful question, because the quality of your life will often be determined by the quality of the questions you ask. Master that art, and you'll master one of the greatest communication skills anyone can ever possess. Let me share a truth that has guided me for many years. Before people listen to your words, they watch your life. Think about that. Long before you open your mouth, people are already forming an opinion. They notice how you treat others. They notice whether you keep your promises. They notice your attitude. They notice your habits. In other words, your character speaks before you do. I've often said success is something you attract by the person you become. Notice I didn't say by the words you speak. I said by the person you become. Because character is the foundation of influence. You can have the perfect speech. You can have the perfect vocabulary. You can know exactly what to say. But if your life doesn't match your words, people will eventually stop listening. Integrity gives power to communication. Without integrity, words become empty. You see, people don't simply believe what you say. They believe what they consistently see. That's why actions always speak louder than words. If you tell people to work hard yourself. If you tell people to be honest yourself. If you tell people to stay disciplined, live a disciplined life. Your example will always teach more than your explanation. That's one of life's greatest principles. Character isn't built in front of an audience. It's built when no one is watching. It's built in the quiet moments. When you choose discipline over comfort, when you choose honesty over convenience, when you choose responsibility over excuses, those small decisions shape the person you become. And over time, that person becomes your message. People are naturally drawn to those they trust. Trust cannot be demanded. It must be earned. One decision at a time, one promise at a time, one act of integrity at a time. Here's something I've learned. You don't have to impress people. You simply have to be genuine. Authenticity has a quiet power. People may admire talent, but they follow character. That's why great leaders never focus only on improving their communication. They first improve themselves. Because the quality of your communication will never rise much higher than the quality of your character. If your heart is filled with gratitude, your words will reflect gratitude. If your heart is filled with kindness, your conversations will bring encouragement. If your heart is filled with wisdom, people will seek your advice. Everything begins on the inside. Then it appears on the outside. Remember this. Your smile communicates, your attitude communicates, your patience communicates, even your silence communicates. You are always sending a message. So make sure it's the message you want people to remember. Become someone who is dependable, someone who keeps their word, someone who treats every person with dignity and respect. Because in the end, people may forget the speech you gave. They may forget the advice you offered, but they'll never forget the character you displayed. My friend, work on your communication skills, but even more importantly, work on yourself. Become a person of integrity. Become a person of humility. Become a person whose actions and words agree. Because when your character speaks first, your words will carry a power that no amount of clever language can ever replace. And that's the kind of communication that changes lives. Your words have the power to shape your future. Think about that. Every opportunity in life begins with communication. A job interview begins with communication. A business partnership begins with communication. A friendship begins with communication. A marriage begins with communication. Leadership begins with communication. You may have incredible talent. You may have brilliant ideas. You may work harder than everyone around you. But if you cannot communicate your value, many doors will remain closed. I've often said success is something you attract by the person you become. Part of becoming that person is learning to communicate with confidence, honesty, and purpose. Communication is not about trying to impress people. It's about creating understanding. It's about building trust. It's about helping people believe in your vision because they first believe in you. Every successful leader understands this principle. People don't simply follow ideas. They follow people who communicate those ideas with clarity and conviction. That's why communication is one of the greatest investments you can ever make in yourself. The more clearly you communicate, the more opportunities begin to appear. Here's another lesson. Success is not built alone. No one achieves greatness by themselves. Every great achievement requires teamwork. Every great team requires trust. And trust grows through communication. When people know they can speak openly with you, they trust you. When they know you'll listen, they respect you. When they know your words match your actions, they believe in you. That's influence. And influence is one of the greatest forms of wealth you'll ever possess. Remember this, every conversation is an opportunity to encourage, an opportunity to inspire, an opportunity to solve a problem, an opportunity to leave someone's life a little better than you found it. Never waste that opportunity. I've met many successful people over the years. Some were brilliant, some were ordinary, but they all had one thing in common. They knew how to connect with people, not by pretending, not by manipulating, but by being genuine. They smiled, they listened, they encouraged, they made people feel important. And people never forget how you make them feel. Here's something worth practicing every day. Speak hope, speak gratitude, speak possibility. The world already has enough criticism, enough negativity, enough people pointing out what's wrong. Become the person who points people toward what's possible. Become the person whose words lift others instead of weighing them down. That is true communication. And here's the beautiful part. The more you encourage others, the more confidence you build within yourself, the more value you create, the more doors begin to open, because success is attracted to people who add value to others. So let me leave you with this challenge from this day forward. Be intentional with your words. Listen before you speak. Think before you respond. Encourage more than you criticize. Ask more questions than you give opinions. And always let your character speak louder than your voice. Because communication is more than a skill. It is a responsibility. It has the power to heal, the power to teach, the power to inspire, the power to change lives. Perhaps the next conversation you have will be the one that changes someone's future. Perhaps it will even change yours. So choose your words carefully. Speak with wisdom. Speak with kindness. Speak with purpose. Because every word you plant today becomes part of the harvest you will reap tomorrow. And remember, great communication doesn't just open doors to success. It opens doors to better relationships, greater opportunities, stronger leadership, and a life of lasting significance. That's the true power of communication. Thank you. And I'll leave you with one final thought. Work on your communication every day, and one day your communication will begin working for you. Great communication isn't about speaking more. It's about listening better, speaking with purpose, and living with integrity. Practice these principles every day, one conversation at a time, one relationship at a time, one opportunity at a time. Because the words you choose today will shape the life you live tomorrow.